Lashana? No!
This is some bullshit.
Lashana's better than me, as if Total Drama did me this dirty, the finale wouldn't have had a winner reveal. It would have had a 10-minute in memoriam. The chokehold Total Drama had over me as a kid cannot be understated. I loved this show. I needed this show, as it was the only comedy on Cartoon Network that made me think I was watching something for kids older than 10. Having that extra bit of edge, raunch, and that one insane shot of Heather, it was my everything. A Survivor knockoff run by a sociopath? Yeah, sign me the fuck up. As the man running it should have been charged with crimes against humanity, so it was just peak comedy. But even he didn't prepare me for the utter disappointment I felt in what they did to Lashana.
Lashana, I meant every—
Not you, Dynamite, the elimination. Like, think about this. Imagine you're Lashana. You've endured weeks of televised, often quite literal torture, proven yourself a saint by not caving in Heather's perfect head, and you make it to the final 5, only to get voted off in a recap episode by a parrot, as a joke. Nothing could have saved Chris from me. Turn off the camera, this will not be televised, because this was some bullshit. And since it's January, YouTube ad revenue is now basically a myth, and my therapist isn't cheap, I might as well exhume the rage that's been fermenting in my brain for the last 20 years and release it into the wild. Because nobody, and I do mean nobody, love triangles included, got done dirtier than Lashana. Especially since she peaked. They never do this girl justice. Ever. Total Drama is basically Canadian Squid Games. It's a show about poor teenagers risking their lives for money for our entertainment on an island that has to be in international waters, as none of this can be legal. There is more child endangerment here than in most anime. If this wasn't a cartoon, half the camp would be dead by day 1, and those that survive will have brain damage by day 2. Because Chris is just Satan. This isn't a game, it's barely even a show, it's a test to see exactly how much a celebrity can get away with on a private island, yet unlike the other one, these tapes were actually released, proving that a game show host can do literally anything in the early 2000s and not get cancelled for it so long as the slurs were kept in private.
Not too shabby.
Gods, lock him away.
Again, you would not believe all the stuff this show managed to get away with, both in universe and in real life. Committing to the reality TV games they were parodying, censored swears, cock and all, it committed to the bits, and it was glorious. Total Drama is not a show that rewards morality, it rewards chaos, it rewards manipulation, it rewards Read Your Rival's Diary on live TV Heather being legally allowed to exist. Season 1 was lightning in a bottle as we watched 22 teenagers engage in months of humiliation rituals for the chance to earn $100,000, which is a stupidly low amount of money for them to be doing all of this.
Can you at least do something about him?
Especially, mind you, since there's a good chance they're playing for Canadian money, as the show is set in Canada, meaning these idiots are fighting for a measly $73K US. So it's a good thing that Canada has free healthcare, as in the States, that would barely cover dental. But in the end, that's what made Total Drama work. They picked a bunch of fame-hungry randos off the internet, well, wrote them that way, trapped them on an abandoned island with 2 psychopaths, then filmed it. It was a recipe for drama, and when there's drama, there's profit. A fun satire of all the shows that followed a similar recipe with characters that were parodies of reality TV stereotypes. Except Lashana. She was the regular kind of stereotype of the sassy black woman.
What did you say to me? Oh, no, you didn't. You have not seen anything yet. I'll show you big, baby.
Not gonna lie, the fact that it came out that Lashana's character description is, well, the sister with Tude, that is the main reason this topic was fresh in my mind when I started writing this video. As, hey, at least they're honest. I don't know to deduct or give them points for not saying sister with an A, as you just know that's what they really meant. And I'm not about to be an arbiter about how this show has particularly aged, but in bad taste or not, Lashana was one of my favorite characters. As I don't care about how many bad stereotypes it played into, Heather deserved all these just desserts. Lashana exists on the edge of a character clearly trying to play into not embrace the worst sides of a stereotype, but also is doing a lot of other cliches. But the parts of her that worked in season 1 really worked. Even if it was, checking the other minority. And yes, this is how someone will find out that Heather was Asian. But beef aside, Lashana was one of the best competitors in Total Drama. She chucked bitches off of cliffs, outplayed a Navy SEAL, and was one of Gwen's closest friends outside the piece of cardboard the goth was dating. Temporarily. Lashana was just solid. She didn't scheme all the time because she didn't have to. People liked her, they trusted her, she built alliances by being normal and decent, which in Total Drama is basically a superpower. She was confident without being cruel, read others like a book, managing to be emotionally intelligent in a cast full of walking red flags. Yeah, she had her temper, yes, she could be very loud and was a terrible dancer, but all those flaws aside and the kindness, when she needed to be, she could be cutthroat and didn't miss. Voting out everyone's friend Jeff, as that's what you do when someone is a threat, even if you like the dude. But when she saw someone who needed to be punished, she rallied the troops and got alleged cheaters kicked off the island. If it was all based on a lie.
Why should you care? You think I'm a cliche.
Where'd you get that from?
Her?
You're the devil.
Where other contestants would have snapped, she didn't. When it comes to mistakes, she made basically none, except leaving Owen's fat ass alone with the food during a cooking challenge. But she also locked Heather in a freezer, so it's cool. While she was never the main focus of episodes in season 1, by the end of the series, it was really hard to find anything bad to say about her. She picked her battles well, picked her friends better, and by the time she was in the final 5, no one could doubt that she hadn't earned the right to be there. She wasn't lucky like Owen, she never had haters like Duncan, she was consistently more proactive than Gwen. It really seemed like Lashana could win it all, then she got voted off as a joke.
Who would you like to vote for?
So here's how Lashana got eliminated. Not in a challenge or dramatic betrayal, but in, dare I say, what is the equivalent of production filler. A check-in with all the contestants who have been voted off, having been thrown out of hell to a luxury island resort. The kind they were promised only to get saddled with the summer camp, with us getting to see how everyone's taken their L, recapping previous events and relationships so everyone can remember the stakes and history. Then wham, Chris McClane, the man, the myth, the Jude from 16, he drops the bomb that the losers are gonna vote off the next member of the cast, where, after they recover from the shock, they all have the same thought. Heather. Because of course they would. Heather may be the most fun to watch, but she has spent the entire season speedrunning social sabotage. She's lied, manipulated, insulted, and emotionally terrorized her way through the game. The cast doesn't just dislike her, they would call 21 stab wounds an act of God, and that she had it coming. But Chris, of course, is on some bullshit. He and the other producers, they love Heather. If she ever gets an immunity idol, just safe bet that the show is trying to throw her a bone to keep her in the game longer, as this woman is TV gold. There must be drama and she can't help but stir the pot. So despite having this layup, the perfect opportunity to get rid of Heather once and for all, half of them just getting their revenge after they got voted off by her machinations, they failed. As Chris isn't counting votes, he is counting name drops.
Why are you voting her off? If you like Lashana, leave her in.
Yeah, this is how they do her. After all of Lashana's hard work near flawlessly playing the game, going into the final 5 with her best friend, an easily bribable lamb, a dude who actually respects her, and a common enemy, show really said, fuck her in particular. None of that mattered, she's just getting voted out for kicks. And man, did this one sting as a kid. As Total Drama is no stranger to BS eliminations. Noah got voted off despite his team technically winning the challenge. Ezekiel, out-of-pocket misogyny just so the show could save Courtney's ass. But at least you can say with a lot of the other bad eliminations, they happened to lesser competitors. Or they were triggered by a character flaw that made their downfall at least satisfying. Perhaps it didn't, but it would still cement the villain as being a threat that they managed to orchestrate this. But, while funny, this elimination just felt shitty. This isn't strategy, there's no irony in Lashana's downfall, it's just taking her off the board, with her face saying it all, what the fuck just happened? And the actual answer is pretty interesting. You see, one of the directors for Total Drama, Todd Kaufman, revealed on Twitter that the reason Lashana was voted off the way that she was isn't because she suddenly got sick and couldn't finish the show, which was a rumor that was around for reasons. It actually happened because of the budget. Turns out the original plan was to have Lashana lose in a fashion show episode, and all those outfits cost a lot of money to create and animate. And they just didn't have those funds, so they kind of just went with the recap type episode. And in the fashion show, the original plan was for her to win and give her immunity to Gwen. Probably because there's a high chance Gwen was gonna get voted off, and these longtime friends would rally together to take out their mutual enemy in Heather. Except that was only what Lashana thought was gonna happen. The twist was gonna be that Gwen, feeling the pressure, would flip. Similar to how Lashana voted off Jeff not out of malice but recognizing that he was a threat, probably thinking that if this were to come down to a popularity contest, which was a staple of the genre, then Jeff would have won. And Gwen thinking this, that if it came down to just the two of them, Lashana probably would have won the vote. Lashana was never gonna win, but the original plan to eliminate her was for her to help Gwen, only to get stabbed in the back.
What the fuck? Betrayal! Betrayal on all sides!
Speaking for myself, I would have loved this. It's a dark but satisfying twist that leans on Gwen's insecurities that would become so much more relevant in the future. It would have given the two an actual wrinkle to their relationship versus falling back into their just default best friend, really main character and black best friend trope. It also would have made LaShawn and Heather doing their whole keep your friends close, enemy closers type situation way more interesting, as it adds fuel to the idea that Lashana might prefer her greatest enemy over Gwen. As at least with Heather, Lashana would know what she's dealing with. It would have added juicy tension that could have been used to sprout some more interesting faults and eliminations than what we got. But before we get into the aftermath, we do have to entertain the idea that this isn't the worst elimination in the show, as I'm pretty sure half the comments in this video are just gonna be actually me on who actually got done the dirtiest. Which, perfect. That's what I want. Give me that sweet, sweet engagement. It really helps the video. But you are wrong. Lashana's is the worst, but I'll give you maybe it's only the worst out of universe, aka for us watching as an audience. Nobody is done dirtier than her, as while people in the show will get kicked off for dumb or petty reasons, none of them have the hype-destroying impact this one does. This put one of the top competitors out of the game, robbing her of a chance to punt the woman who can only politely be described with a word reserved for Australians, with the BS vote having zero ramifications later. This shit is barely, if not ever, brought up again. But if I were to devil's advocate my own premise, I do think there's exactly one elimination that might be more bullshit, which is Courtney's.
Let's see how you like it when someone messes with your love life.
Chris is a walking OSHA violation. He is the biggest fictional Canadian menace to society ever created, except debatably maybe Trevor from GTA. So him making a rigged game where what counts as a vote is just people saying the player's name, and players would have multiple votes, and a fuck-ass pair can also chime in? That's crazy, and is absolutely worth suing over. However, that at least stays consistent with its own BS. Courtney, though, is objectively the worst elimination in universe. As this wasn't some demonic level of trickery, it's not Canadian Squid Game screwing over their players, this is just straight up cheating. Harold broke into the voting box, switched out the votes, and worst of all, the show knew it. He does it right in the confessional booth for the producers to see, and who then decide, okay, yeah, we're just gonna allow this. If the voting box isn't sacred, nothing is. If one person can bust in and change the votes, then anyone can. It breaks the entire game to a point that there's no coming back from. Chris can commit basically any crime under the sun, torture minors for his own amusement, but if the votes can be tampered with, then nothing else matters. What makes what the 40-pound knockoff did even worse is that he did it on camera. We can't even pretend that this was found footage from later on in the game that the producers decided to put in. He looked the audience dead in the eye and did that shit. So even if they only found out about it later, they still cut it into the episode to let the world know what really happened. And the show was going to allow it. Hence why it makes sense that Courtney would crash out after she discovered what happened, doubling down on winning at all costs. But, and here's the part we have to differentiate between the world and the story as it's being written, while it downright ruins the game and any credibility TD as a game show can have in allowing Harold to do this, As a story, it's great, and most importantly, a reasonable twist. Duncan had been bullying the will to live out of Harold. The nerd may have been gross, leaving his underwear everywhere, but Duncan rallied all the boys, even the supposedly nicest ones on the island, and got them to start treating Harold like he was the scum of the earth, making Harold's breaking the rules to get his get back, saying enough was enough, that Duncan may be able to make him eat his own underwear, publicly humiliate him in front of all the women, cover his bed in peanut butter just because. But after all that, Harold draws the line at his bully getting laid. So, after all that mistreatment, it makes sense that Harold would come up with a way to make Duncan suffer. Something to be said about Harold deciding to kick out Courtney instead of just going for Duncan. But while the retribution may be misplaced, you can't say Duncan didn't have this coming. And while Courtney was done dirty, this elimination would serve as the catalyst for Courtney's character shift for the rest of the series. She got cheated by the system, so she decided to learn how to abuse it. No more playing fair. Her new motto was me, myself, and my lawyer, catapulting her to a way bigger role in the next season. Meanwhile, Lashana, by comparison, got nothing, except skinny Tarzan over here.
Why do you call him Tarzan?
Oh, come on. You know why.
I've never seen a girl like you in real life before. You're real big and loud.
Yeah, like I alluded to earlier, the other thing that poisoned this elimination for me is that Lashana never really comes back from this. She never regains the same level of relevance, and from this point on, every single one of her eliminations is some variation of a brutal betrayal by her love interests, be it Harold, Alejandro, or the original betrayal of our expectations. Now, to be fair, I do actually like some of the ideas behind this shift. As the series goes on, contestants do get smarter, meaner, more vicious. Everyone's trying to claw back the money they feel that was stolen from them the first time, especially now that the prize pool has been bumped up to a way more respectable $723,000, assuming that's real Canadian money and not Monopoly bills painted green for the camera. But the game itself evolved, the meta changed, and in a version of Total Drama where everyone's playing dirtier, stacking alliances and treating morality like a temporary debuff, you could argue that Lashana just failed to adapt. That and the writers weren't giving her squat. Lashana, still a solid competitor, still respected and feared, but she never builds a strong enough crew to go the distance. Everyone knows she's a menace, so the second she slips up and Beth illegally checks the internet, they all turn on her, finding out that Lashana faked cried to convince her team to give her the spa weekend, where needing a vent, she talks shit about all the people she's been forced to spend time with, and honestly, she didn't tell any lies here, causing the others to turn on her, including her ex, who's still obsessed. Now, I still didn't like this elimination when I was younger, but at least with this one you can say it is an actual flaw that caused her downfall instead of a fucking parrot. And if you're expecting more to happen, World Tour, she just gets played by Alejandro. Lashana stops feeling like a contender and starts instead feeling like set dressing. And it's hard not to notice that the show is doing to her exactly what it did to Gwen, taking a fierce season 1 competitor and slowly making sure they never reach the same heights ever again. The difference though, Gwen still got A plot real estate, a god-awful love triangle, but storylines nonetheless. Lashana doesn't get that luxury. Instead, she drifts then plummets from major supporting character to an increasingly irrelevant C-tier presence, where her presence entirely hinges on her proximity to more important characters. Be it Gwen's co-captain working with Heather, Harold's crush, beefing with Duncan over him bullying Napoleon Dynamite, except this time, he has a arguably valid reason, but rarely does a show take that extra step into something actually interesting, like Lashana finding out what Harold really did, or developing her frenemy dynamic with Heather into something more meaningful. By World Tour, all of her relationships just get factory resets, so Lashana is left with nothing. No arc, no momentum, just a slow walk to an elimination you can see from a mile away. And that's why, when I look back on Total Drama as a whole, Lashana's elimination is the worst one. Yes, the cast is massive. Yes, not everyone can get the spotlight, but when you add it all up, Lashana is the one character who gets absolutely screwed and then gets nothing out of it. Plenty of characters get done dirty, but a lot at least rebound if they weren't jokes to begin with. Justin, Beth, Courtney's heel turn, they all usually get something if they got screwed over in season 1. But the season where Lashana is at her most relevant is the one where she got voted off by a bird who voted twice. No payoff, no redemption or revenge, just a gag. And if you were a fan of Lashana, it sucked to watch, and in hindsight, it still sucks now. Which is why I'll always stand by this being the worst elimination in total drama history. Though I never got around to watching the newest season, so maybe they found something even worse. But I doubt it.